Kawhi Leonard is the best player in the NBA. Over the years, Kawhi has been known for being one of the best players in the NBA and certainly a top 5 guy. But in my opinion, based upon a bunch of different factors, I think he's really starting to cement himself as being the best player in the NBA. And when you look at his Game 1 performance against the Phoenix Suns, that really backs that up, as he was clearly the best player in that game. But quickly, before we get the video started, for those of you who may not know, I'm Juicy Sports. I make opinionated NBA content. And if you guys enjoy videos similar to this, hit that subscribe button, that like button, and that post notification bell. I also want to quickly mention that I recently started up an MMA channel, and if you guys are interested in that, the link will be in the description. But anyways, let's get into it. A couple of seasons ago, the Los Angeles Clippers were seen as championship favorites for about 2 or 3 seasons. They had an extremely talented team led by both Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, but at the same time, they also had a very deep roster, making them one of, if not the most dangerous teams in the NBA at that point. But although they had all the star power in the world and they were an extremely deep roster, the Clippers weren't able to have all that much success in the playoffs. Not only were they not able to win an NBA championship, but they didn't even get all that far. And after those couple seasons of failure for the Los Angeles Clippers, a lot of people started to see Kawhi in a different light. Before the Clippers had a lack of success for those 2 or 3 years, a lot of people saw Kawhi as being a top 3 guy, maybe even a little bit better than that. But after the playoff failures that Kawhi and the Clippers had, a lot of people saw Kawhi as maybe a top 5 or maybe a little bit worse than that type player. And after the playoff failures that the Clippers had, Kawhi then got injured and he didn't play every single game even when he was healthy, and due to a multitude of different reasons that I mentioned in this video, people didn't see Kawhi to be as good as they used to before going to the Clippers. So now, some of you may be wondering, why did I title this video Kawhi Leonard is the best player in the NBA, considering all the things that I mentioned just before? Well, in my opinion, I always thought Kawhi was a top 3 player in the league. And I even made a video 2 years ago talking about how I thought Kawhi Leonard was the best player in the NBA, but over the last couple seasons, I had to change my tune somewhat on that, and I needed to consider other guys as being the best player in the NBA, due to injuries and lack of playoff success for Kawhi. But this season, once again, I'm considering Kawhi Leonard to be the best player in the NBA, and I think so for a couple different reasons. The first reason that I want to touch upon is his regular season performance alongside with his great playoff performance so far. Now, in Game 1 versus the Phoenix Suns, Kawhi Leonard looked unstoppable. He was phenomenal all game as he put up 38 points on efficient shooting numbers as well, on 5 rebounds, on 5 assists as well. But especially once it came down to the clutch time, that's where he really elevated to his best. In that 4th quarter, he was hitting 3-point jump shot after 3-point jump shot, he was money from that mid-range area, he was getting N1 finishes, and overall he just looked like the old healthy Kawhi Leonard. And due to his phenomenal play, especially in the clutch, he took his team, the LA Clippers, over the Phoenix Suns in an upset Game 1 victory when the Clippers didn't even have Paul George in the lineup either, which makes it that much more impressive. Now, some of you at this point may be asking, how can I possibly consider someone the best player in the NBA based off one playoff game? And to that I would say I'm not basing it off one playoff game, I'm basing it off his entire career, but I'm using his great Game 1 performance to really back up my thought process to show how good Kawhi could be when he's at his best. In Game 1 we saw Kawhi at his best, let's just be honest, and when he's at that level he's basically impossible to beat. He's phenomenal from that 3-point range as he turned into a very consistent 3-point shooter, whether you talk about the catch and shoot 3-point jump shot, crossover, sometimes even a sidestep, or even a step back into a 3-point jump shot. Kawhi is just very consistent from that 3-point range, which is really something he worked on throughout his entire career in order to get to this point. But when you talk about his mid-range jump shot, this is definitely his bread and butter, and this area is something that's literally impossible to stop. He has a phenomenal one-dribble pull-up mid-range jumper, he has a great post turnaround fadeaway, crossover, sidestep, or even a step back into a mid-range jump shot, and basically from that mid-range area, it doesn't matter what you do as a defender. You can get a great contest on him, you can even foul him, it doesn't really matter. He's most likely gonna make that mid-range jump shot. And we especially saw that in his Game 1 performance against the Phoenix Suns. But the great thing about Kawhi is he's not only a shooter out there, but he's also phenomenal once driving all the way to the basket. Once driving to the basket, Kawhi actually has pretty sneaky crazy athleticism and has the ability to posterize players at times. But more often than not, what Kawhi does once driving all the way to the basket is finish around them with crafty layups, either his left or his right hand. But he also has a tremendous ability to use the great strength that he does have to finish through contact for N1 finishes as well. And overall, when you look at Kawhi's individual scoring ability, he's a very complete player at this point. He's done a great job over the years ever since he was drafted to work on a different aspect of his game, and eventually he turned himself into the player that we all know and love him to be today. Just a complete 3-level scorer and clearly one of the more elite scorers in the NBA. But another great thing about Kawhi, and something that he's added to his game throughout his career, has to be his passing and playmaking ability. Earlier on in his career, Kawhi was seen as a really good mid-range jump shot shooter and had some other abilities in terms of his individual scoring ability as well, but he didn't necessarily have a great basketball IQ or a great passing and playmaking ability. But now that's really something that he added within his game, and we see a lot of times when he gets doubled or even triple teamed, he always finds the open guy for easy jump shots or easy dunks or layups. And adding that ability to your game just makes it that much easier for yourself individually, because the defense is going to need to respect that aspect of your game as well, but also makes it easier for all your teammates out there because they're going to get a lot more open shots. And once again, throughout his game 1 performance, we saw a lot of that as well, as he did have 5 assists on the night. But besides his great offensive abilities as a whole, another thing that Kawhi does at an elite level is defense. Now, when you talk about the better players in the NBA, you talk about a lot of guys that are great on both sides of the court. And when you look at Kawhi, he's no different. He's absolutely elite defensively. He always guards the opposing team's best player, and he does a great job on them. Now, obviously, when you're guarding the best players in the NBA, it's basically impossible to fully stop them, but Kawhi does as good of a job as you possibly could to limit the amount of points that the opposing team's best player puts up. And especially when it comes down to the playoffs, and in this series specifically, he's going to be guarding Kevin Durant. Of course, that's extremely important. But overall, when you look at Kawhi's game, when you talk about his offense and his defense, it's pretty clear that this guy is an elite player, and in my opinion, I do think he's the best player in the NBA at this point. Now, with that being said, going forward throughout the rest of the series versus the Suns, I fully expect Kawhi to play at a very elite level for every single game, basically. And he's going to need to play at the best level he possibly could, especially when you talk about the team that he's going up against. Now, when you look at both of these teams on paper, it seems like the Suns should win this relatively easily. Of course, it could be a little bit close, but I do think the Suns are a relatively heavy favorite. When you talk about the guys they have in Kevin Durant, Chris Paul, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, and others, they're obviously a very, very talented team. But when you talk about Kawhi Leonard being on the Clippers alongside with some of the talent that they have on the roster, I do think it's possible the Clippers do win, but it's going to be very difficult. In order for them to do so, as I mentioned, Kawhi needs to play at his very best for every single game. But I am extremely excited to see what happens throughout the rest of this series with the Suns, and if the Clippers are able to make it past them, I'm excited to see what happens going from there. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think Kawhi Leonard is the best player in the NBA at this point, or do you not think so? But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy, check one of these 2 videos popping up now, and until the next time, peace out, guys.